I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who ends up fighting for space in her own son's house. But maybe that's where I went wrong, thinking it was his house, when it was actually mine too. I'm Linda, 62, retired administrative assistant, widow, and mother of one very loved, slightly spoiled son named Evan. I raised him alone. When his dad passed, Evan was only 9. I worked late nights, picked up extra shifts, skipped every vacation. My only goal was to make sure he had a better start than I did. So when he told me he was getting married to a girl named Madison, who I'd met maybe 4 times, I smiled, nodded, and swallowed every bit of unease I felt. I didn't want to be that mother. You know, the one who clings. The one who loses her son to another woman. That's not me. But then he said they were house hunting, and their budget was tight. So I did what any loving, maybe slightly self-sacrificing mother might do. I offered him my life savings. $80,000. No strings. No loan. Just a gift to help him and his fiancée get started. He hugged me. Madison smiled with those polite, rehearsed eyes. And then I said something that, in hindsight, I should have thought through. I'll just live in the guest room until I find a new place. Maybe 6 months or so. I thought I was being reasonable. Temporary. Quiet. They said, of course. Of course. 2 weeks later, we moved in together. A tidy 3-bedroom townhouse in a calm suburb. It smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Evan was beaming. Madison posed by the granite countertop for Instagram. And me? I unpacked my suitcase in the smallest bedroom and told myself this was good. This was family. The first few days were fine. I made breakfast. We took turns cooking dinner. Madison would leave notes like, "Thanks for the groceries," or "Don't forget trash day, smiley face." Sweet. Thoughtful. I told myself I liked her. But then things started to shift. One night, I came home to find my teapot missing. Madison had replaced it with an electric kettle, sleek, modern, and silent. I opened the cabinet. My blue porcelain set, the one I've had since Evan's first birthday, was gone, packed into a box and shoved in the garage. I asked her gently, "Did you move my dishes?" She laughed. "Oh, I thought they were extras. I'm trying to declutter. You know, less is more. Less is more. Unless we're talking about me, apparently." I told myself it was small. Not worth a fight. She was nesting. It was their house now. I was just the helper. But I couldn't shake the feeling I'd made a mistake. A few days later, a note appeared on the fridge. "Please keep kitchen noise down after 7 p.m. Madison has early calls." Then another. "Let's keep shared spaces tidy. Guests should ask before entering." And another. "Living room reserved for couple time after 6 p.m. I started eating in my room, watching TV on my tablet with headphones. I tiptoed like a stranger in a home I'd helped pay for. Evan didn't notice, or maybe he did and didn't want to get involved. When I brought it up gently one evening, he said, "Madison just likes structure, Mom. Don't take it personally." I wanted to scream, but I just nodded. Because how do you argue with that? With structure? With the woman your son loves? You don't. You wait. You hope it gets better. You pretend the walls aren't closing in. Until one morning, I opened my bedroom door and found it taped to the wood. A white envelope. Neat handwriting. My name. Inside was a letter from a lawyer. Not a formal eviction, but a request to vacate for emotional harmony. Emotional harmony. In the house I helped buy, where I sleep in the smallest room, where I wash dishes, pay for groceries, babysit their dog, and take out the trash. That was the moment I realized I didn't live in a home. I was squatting in someone else's story. And the people I trusted to make space for me were quietly pushing me out. They told me it was temporary. Just a few weeks, until her lease ends. She was Madison's mom. Diane. Blonde, brittle, and always just a little too loud. I came home from the store one day and she was sitting on the stairs. Like she belonged there. Like this wasn't a surprise. like I was the guest now. "Oh hey Linda," she chirped. "Hope you don't mind, I'll be crashing here for a bit. My landlord's such a nightmare." She never asked. Never waited. She just moved in. 2 suitcases, 3 boxes, and suddenly the guest bathroom wasn't mine anymore. Her perfumes lined the counter. Her laundry piled in the hallway. And the kicker? She took my spot at the kitchen table like it had always been hers. Evan barely blinked. "It's just temporary, Mom," he said again. "Diane's had a rough year." Rough year? I gave him my entire retirement so he wouldn't have one. But no one seemed to remember that part. Diane started organizing things. First, the kitchen drawers. "Who even uses this much Tupperware?" she'd mutter. Then the pantry. My spices were replaced with better ones. She even hung new curtains in the living room. Bright yellow ones, like a splash of lemon in a place that used to feel calm. I bit my tongue. I thought, she's a guest. She'll be gone soon. But the weeks passed, and she wasn't leaving. Madison loved having her mom there. They'd cook together, rearrange the furniture, laugh behind closed doors. I was becoming background noise. Until one night, I overheard them talking. They didn't know I was standing outside the laundry room. Their voices filtered through the thin walls like static. "I just don't feel comfortable with her here," Madison said. "It's our home. She treats it like a motel." "She's not going to stay forever," Diane replied. "But you're right. You need to draw lines now. Otherwise, she'll never leave." I felt something snap. Quietly, gently, like a thread pulled too tight. Never leave? This wasn't a vacation for me. I paid for this roof. I didn't show up with a suitcase and a story. The next morning, I decided to set boundaries. I sat Evan down. He looked exhausted, pulled in 5 directions, but I didn't care. "Evan, we need to talk," I said. "I love you. And I want you and Madison to have a beautiful life. But I didn't give you that money to buy myself an eviction." He shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, nobody's evicting you." "I found a letter on my door," I snapped. "From a lawyer. A suggestion to vacate. From a woman who isn't family, who just waltzed into my life and took over." He blinked. "Oh, that was just..." Madison was upset. She thought maybe giving space would help. Giving space. I laughed. "Then why is her mother here?" He didn't answer. And that's when I saw it. The silence. The same one I'd heard for weeks. The quiet agreement. The careful neutrality. He wasn't going to pick sides. He was going to let this play out. Watch from the sidelines. And hope no one blamed him for the outcome. I walked away before I cried. That night, I sat in my tiny room, my name on nothing, my voice unheard. I stared at the bank statement still folded in my drawer. $80,000 transferred. No contract. No proof. Just trust. A mother's trust. And I realized, in this house, trust was currency. And I had just spent mine on people who never planned to pay it back. The envelope wasn't sealed. Just resting on the table, like a casual note. Except casual notes don't come printed on legal letterhead. Madison and Diane were in the kitchen, whispering. Evan had already left for work. And I stood there, staring at the envelope, my heart pounding like it already knew what was inside. Notice of termination of cohabitation due to emotional discomfort. It wasn't signed by Evan. It was from Madison's lawyer. Polite, clinical. A list of reasons: lack of compatibility, emotional disruption, inability to establish mutual boundaries. Then the line that burned. We request the voluntary vacation of the premises by the end of the month. The end of the month. 2 weeks. I sat down. Slowly. My hands trembled, but my back stayed straight. I'd lived through funerals, layoffs, hospital nights, debt collectors. But this betrayal came with a font and a footer. I didn't say a word. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. Later that evening, Evan came home. I waited until we were alone. Kitchen. Low light. The clink of glasses behind us. "Did you know about this?" I asked. He paused. That pause. That damn pause. I knew she was talking to someone. I didn't think she'd send it. So you didn't stop her either, I said. Mom, he rubbed his temples. This isn't about sides. It's about peace. Madison feels like she can't relax with all the tension in the house. She feels uncomfortable. I laughed once. Sharp. Dry. I gave you this house, Evan. I gave up everything so you two could start your life. And now I'm the disruption. It's just temporary. Don't say that word to me again. The silence that followed was thicker than drywall. Then he said the sentence that cracked something in me. She's my fiancée, Mom. I have to put her first. It was like a slow-motion slap. Not loud. Not physical. But shattering. I never asked to be first, I whispered. I only asked not to be erased. He opened his mouth, closed it. No words. I walked out. Upstairs. I sat in the dark and looked at the framed photo on my dresser. Evan, age 6, wearing a paper crown we made from old grocery bags. Smiling. Missing 2 front teeth. Holding my hand like I was his entire world. And now I was just an obstacle. A few days later, I woke up to voices. Diane was on the phone in the living room, my living room. Yeah, she said, we should have the place to ourselves soon. Finally. It'll feel like a real home without all the drama. She laughed. Something inside me turned cold. Not angry. Not even sad. Just done. I called a lawyer the next morning. Explained everything. The money. The verbal agreement. The so-called eviction. She listened carefully, then asked one question. Do you have any written proof that the $80,000 was a loan or investment? I froze. No. I trusted them. A pause. That's going to be difficult, she said gently. But not impossible. She told me to gather everything. Messages, bank records, timestamps. Anything that showed intent. I hung up and opened my laptop. I searched through years of texts. Bank receipts. Photos from the closing day. There it was. A message from Evan, 3 months before they closed. Thanks for doing this, Mom. I promise it's not just your gift. It's your security too. You'll always have a place with us. I saved it. Printed it. Stared at it for a long time. Not because it helped the case, but because it reminded me. I hadn't imagined it. Once I had a son who meant every word he said. You know what's worse than betrayal? Silence. The silence of someone who could speak up and doesn't. After that letter, I stopped talking. Not out of pettiness. Not out of pride. Out of self-preservation. If I opened my mouth, I was afraid of what would come out. So I started moving differently. Quieter. Lighter. I became like steam, present, but invisible. And they seemed happy with that. Diane took over the living room. Madison hosted friends for brunch strategy meetings that looked like gossip sessions with champagne. My room shrank by the day, emotionally, spiritually, physically. They used to knock. Now they just opened the door if it wasn't locked. One afternoon, Diane came in without warning, holding a tape measure. Just checking something. Don't mind me. I stared at her. Checking what? Oh, we're thinking of turning this into a nursery. You know, just planning ahead. A nursery. For a baby that didn't exist. In a room that wasn't theirs. I went completely still. She smiled like she hadn't just shattered the last piece of peace I had left. That night, I sat across from Evan at dinner. Not Madison. Not Diane. Just him. I pushed the roasted chicken around my plate and finally asked, Are you really okay with all this? He blinked. What do you mean? With your future mother-in-law measuring my walls for a nursery. With your fiancé sending me a legal letter. With your silence. He sighed, as if I were the burden. Can we not do this right now? I leaned forward, my voice low. No. We're doing it now. Because if we don't, I'll walk. And I don't think you're ready for what that looks like. He looked away. Cowardly. Then he muttered the line that ended it for me. Madison just wants to build a life. Maybe you're taking it too personally. Personally, let me explain something, Evan. I gave you everything. I held your hand when your father died. I pulled double shifts to buy you braces. I skipped funerals to keep your school lunches full. I didn't date for 10 years because I didn't want to bring instability into your world. And when you said you found someone who made you happy, I gave you money. Not just cash. My future. My safety net. My plan B. So when your fiancé tells me to leave, and her mother moves into the guest room I gave up, and you say I'm taking it personally. Yes, I am. Because this isn't a hallway disagreement. It's a full-on extraction. You're not building a home. You're building a fortress and locking me out. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Thanks for dinner, I said. And I went to my room, locked the door, and pulled out a pen. I wrote down everything. Dates. Names. Bank transfers. Direct quotes. Not because I planned to sue. Not yet. I just needed to remember what was real. Because in this house, gaslighting had become interior design. 2 days later, I came home from the pharmacy and saw my name erased from the mailbox. Just a gone. Where it used to say E. Walker/L. Walker in black marker, now it just said E and M. No note. No explanation. Just erasure. And that's when it hit me. They weren't waiting for me to move out. They were pretending I was already gone. You don't notice how invisible you've become until even your name disappears from the mailbox. No text. No conversation. Just a clean wipe. Like I was never there. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, its blades spinning so slow they looked still. And I thought about how much of my life I had spent making space for other people. Clearing room. Shrinking myself. Folding away the sharp edges. And what did I get in return? A legal letter. A repurposed bedroom. A silent son. That weekend, I sat down with a cup of tea I had to brew in the microwave, because Diane had thrown out my kettle, and I wrote a list. A real one. With a pen. On paper. What I gave. $80,000. Groceries for the first 3 months. Dog walking every week. Cleaning when they left for date nights. 3 months of pretending it didn't hurt. What I got. Eviction threats. Cold glances. A lockless door. Silence. The math didn't add up. So I made a decision. I called my friend Gail and said, "Is your guest room still open?" She didn't ask why. Just said, "When can I come pick you up?" I gave myself 3 days. I boxed my things at night. Quietly. Like a thief in my own story. I only packed what was mine, clothes, photos, my journals, my mother's necklace. When I came out to the kitchen on the second night, Diane was there, barefoot, drinking red wine in one of my mugs. She didn't say hello. Just glanced at the boxes and smirked. Finally deciding to make things easier for everyone? I didn't blink. "I'm deciding to reclaim my dignity." She snorted. "Please. You never belonged here, Linda. You gave money, not a vote." I stepped forward. Slowly. Calmly. I gave my son a foundation. You handed him entitlement. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. But I wasn't done. You may have manipulated your way into this house, but you'll never be able to furnish it with grace. And I walked away. The next morning, I left a single envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, a printed record of the $80,000 transfer. A copy of Evan's text. "You'll always have a place with us." A short note in my handwriting. "This home was built with love. But I won't live where love is replaced by strategy. You've made it clear there's no place for me here. Now it's your turn to build something, without tearing someone else down to do it." I didn't wait for them to read it. By the time they came back from their couples yoga class, I was gone. I moved into Gail's spare bedroom, a small peach-painted room with creaky floors and a drafty window. And I slept like I hadn't in months. That night, I dreamt of my younger self. She was standing at the edge of a cliff, holding the deed to a house in one hand and a suitcase in the other. She looked back at me and smiled. And then she jumped. Not into fear. Into freedom. 3 days. That's how long it took. 3 days after I left, after I turned off my phone and let the silence fill the cracks, he showed up. Evan. I was in the kitchen at Gail's place, folding dish towels, pretending I still had a routine. And then, 3 soft knocks on the door. Too soft to be angry. Too timid to be sure. Gail peeked through the blinds and whispered, "It's him." My breath caught. I didn't rush to answer. I needed that pause. I needed him to wait. When I opened the door, he looked smaller. Not physically, but drained. Pale. A little boy in a man's body. "Hi, Mom," he said. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. Wordless. He sat at the table like it was sacred ground, like he had to earn the right to be there. "I didn't know it would go that far," he began. "Don't," I said, raising a hand. "Don't start with that." He swallowed hard. "I thought if I stayed quiet, things would calm down. I thought you and Madison would work it out. By kicking me out of the home I helped buy?" I asked, not angry, just tired. "I didn't approve the letter," he said quickly. "That was all Madison. Her mom too." I didn't know what to say. That's the problem, Evan. You never know what to say. So you say nothing. And people like her fill the silence for you. He looked away, shame finally breaking through the softness. Then he said something I didn't expect. "I've ended it." I blinked. "What?" "Madison and I," he said. "I told her I needed space. I told her I couldn't marry someone who tried to erase my mother." He rubbed his face. "She didn't take it well." I said nothing, because a part of me had waited so long to hear those words. And another part of me didn't care anymore. Not in a cruel way, but in a done way. "You knew what Diane was doing," I said. "You watched her measure my room for a nursery. You let her call me a problem. You let her take my chair, my cup, my space. And you stayed still." "I didn't know how to stop it," he whispered. "But you knew how to accept it." Silence. Then, "I miss you," he said. "The real you. The woman who raised me." I looked at him long and hard. And finally I asked, "Did you miss me enough to put my name on the deed?" He flinched. Didn't answer. That was the answer. Before he left, he handed me a check. It wasn't for the full amount. Nowhere close. But it was something. "I'm going to pay you back," he said. "Even if it takes me years." I took it. Not because I needed the money. Because it was the first time he chose action over apology. As he walked out, he turned back. "Mom, can we fix this?" I gave him a sad smile. "Maybe. But not while you're still trying to figure out who you are." That night, I sat in Gail's garden under a string of warm lights. And for the first time in months, I felt light. Not vindicated. Not victorious. Just free. There's a kind of power in leaving before someone has to drag you out. There's a kind of peace in knowing you no longer need to wait for someone to become the version of themselves they promised to be. A few weeks passed. I didn't hear from Evan. Not a call, not a text. And you know what? I didn't need to. Because silence used to hurt. Now it just felt quiet. One morning, an envelope came in the mail. No return address. Just my name in my son's handwriting. Inside was a photo. A familiar one. It was us, me and Evan, on the front porch of the house the day he got the keys. I had one arm around his back, the other holding up a bottle of sparkling cider like a trophy. We both looked proud. On the back, he'd written, "Thank you for everything. You didn't lose me. I just lost myself for a while. I hope one day you'll come back. Love, Evan." I sat with that photo in my lap for a long time. Not crying. Just breathing. Because I knew what he meant. And I also knew I would never go back. That house had too many ghosts now. Not of death. Of disrespect. Of slow erasure. Of the moment a mother became a line item in someone else's plan. In time, I found an apartment. Tiny, warm, and entirely mine. I bought my own teapot again. Ceramic, sky blue. I brewed my tea slow every morning. No microwave, no rush. I even started painting. something I hadn't done since before Evan was born. It turns out grief, when given enough air, becomes art. And healing? Healing is when you stop waiting for someone to hand you your dignity back. You just take it. I got a call from Gail one afternoon. "You won't believe this," she said, half laughing. Apparently, Diane was now living in that house alone. Madison had moved out. Evan had gone to stay with a friend. And Diane? She had posted on Facebook, "Family is overrated. I just want peace." Peace. Funny word coming from a woman who turned a home into a battlefield. I didn't comment. Didn't like the post. Didn't screenshot it. I simply whispered, "Good luck," and turned off my phone. Months later, Evan visited me. Not with flowers or apologies. Just with his hands in his pockets and a bag of groceries he'd picked up from the farmer's market. "I didn't know what to bring," he said. "So I brought food." I smiled. "That'll do." We cooked together. Quietly. He peeled carrots. I stirred soup. No speeches. No rewinding the past. And before he left, he asked, "Can I come back next week?" I nodded. We weren't rebuilding the same bridge. We were laying a new one, stone by stone. No more borrowed houses. No more bought silence. Just two people starting again. On equal ground. That night, I sat by the window in my new place. A cup of tea in hand. The sky lilac with the last light of day. And I thought, I gave him $80,000 and lost a house. But in the end, I found something better. I found the version of myself who doesn't beg to belong. I found peace that didn't ask permission. And most of all, I found a home where no one could evict me. Because it lived in me now. Not on paper. Not behind someone else's walls. But inside the woman who finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched something in you, if you've ever felt erased, replaced, or quietly pushed out of your own life, then I hope this gave you the strength to stand tall again. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It helps more people hear these stories. And tell me in the comments, what would you do in my place? Would you forgive your son? Would you ever go back? Or is some peace worth walking away forever? If you noticed a mistake in the story or in the voiceover, feel free to let me know. This was created using AI, and I'm still working on making it better. Thanks again for being here. See you in the next one.